Yeah. Good morning, everyone. Thank you for joining the Miramar Pembroke Pines Regional Chamber of Commerce, Weston, Florida Chamber of Commerce, and our Pembroke Park West Park Chamber of Commerce as well for the second session in 2024 of our Nonprofit Success Series. We have Kirsten Kannico here. Kirsten Stevens with the Kannico Agency. She is a certified fundraising executive and a certified board source nonprofit consultant. She works with startup organizations, assisting nonprofit incorporation and registration, IRS filing and reporting, and ongoing compliance practices. But her focus is working with entities that seek to develop high-performance culture and obtain measurable outcomes with significant social impact. She regularly conducts workshops, board retreats, coaching, and seminars. And through her consulting company, the Kannico Agency, she and her team work with foundations, for-profits, and nonprofits, advising on alternate revenue streams, identifying opportunities for maximizing social impact, and ensuring that nonprofits achieve organizational excellence. And that was really, really important for us to make sure we had somebody who was a pro in the nonprofit world to help our nonprofits here in the chamber plan for our end of year giving campaigns. So with planning, we can all ensure that we're going to have successful 2025s. So with that, I turn it over to Ms. Kirsten Stevens.
Hear me yet? Can you hear me now?
Yeah.
Can everybody hear me?
Yes, we can.
Fantastic. Good. Wonderful. Well, thank you all so much for being here. It's really very encouraging to see the attendance and the enthusiasm as we get close to the end of the year. And I know it's hard to stay focused. Can you hear the background noise? Because I can move into a little bit of no? Okay, fantastic. Good. Okay. So if only you knew what is happening in the background. So So Eduardo, Mr. Grooveman, who is always such a fan and supporter, was welcoming me back from vacation. But I have to be always transparent and honest and authentic. I'm actually on my last day of vacation in Istanbul, and it is prayer hour. And so that's why I keep asking if you can hear the background noise, because there's a lot happening around me. To me, this is really important. And actually, I share that with you because the work has to continue no matter what, right? I mean, yes, I'm on vacation. It's my last day of vacation. I committed to doing this work with all of you. And I'm also really excited because I think that there is potential. I think every single person on this call, everyone who is a member of the Miramar Chamber, everyone who's in any way involved, whether it's as a board member, as a leader for a nonprofit organization, has the potential to maximize the end of year. There is so much you can do. And I know the first thing that we think of is, not my organization. Yeah, you don't really know. We're so much smaller than other organizations. I'm just a board member. I really can't do much, but I'm interested. I'm going to be here and listen in. Or, our budget is so much smaller than other organizations, or we're just getting started, or we don't have a formal fundraising program, but we're just going to see if we can pick up some tips. The truth is, every single one of us can make a huge difference between now and the end of the year. And there's so many things that you can measure too. And you can start that now. You can start measuring your impact in donor retention, your donor stewardship, growing your email list. If last year you were able to send out 10 end of year emails, this year you can send out 20 maybe. You could work on your Giving Tuesday, which we're going to talk a lot about Giving Tuesday today. What could you do for Giving Tuesday? Because it's very overwhelming. A lot of very successful organizations that do really well for Giving Tuesday have teams of 50 people, 100 people manning the phones, doing phone-a-thons. They're very, very successful. But that's not the case with a lot of us. Who has 50 people to sit in a room and man the phones for 24 hours? To raise money? But there is still so much that you can do. So I encourage you to be open-minded, to be committed, to be willing to experiment a little bit and play a little bit and figure out some things that could really help your organization as you go into the last few months of the year. So I'm going to share my screen. And let me just see here. Okay. Let's see, give me a moment. All righty. So we have about 2 hours today, and I'm going to do this a little bit. Let's see if I can play from start. It's not going to work. Okay, so this was working before, but when I stopped sharing, it didn't. I may have to do it this way. Okay. All right. So you all know who I am. We did a little bit of a recap already. And this is what I wanted to talk about is, what does the end of year mean to you? So for some people, it is a moment of panic. It means, oh my goodness, I haven't done everything that I said I was going to do. And I don't have a lot of time left now to raise the money I need to raise, or to reach out to the donors I need to reach out to. For some people, it's a feeling of, oh, well, you know what? It's another year. We couldn't get it done. What are we going to do? And then for other people, there's sort of this grim determination. And we say, you know what? Yes, we are going to work really hard and get some things done by the end of the year. And that's really the camp I'd like you to fall into. I'd like you to be thinking, this is something you can do. This is an absolutely, something that it can be accomplished. There's potential out there. It can be achieved. Let's stay positive. And let's just be thinking, okay, we're going to get to end of year anyway. Do we want to get to end of year with no results, or do we want to get to end of year with some results at least? All right. And there we go. Okay. So what we're going to do today is we're going to talk about very, very tactical steps. So end of year really means campaign planning. That's what it is. Your end of year is campaign planning. And that involves setting specific and achievable goals, creating a comprehensive calendar, and assigning roles and responsibilities, and then the accountability that comes with that. And what I'd like to do is, we talk about goals, but I don't know that we all understand really what does that mean? What does it mean to set some goals? So we're going to actually workshop this session today. I'm going to go through every step of this with you. And when we talk about specific and achievable goals, what does that mean? What could it mean for my organization? What could it mean for your organization? What does it mean when it comes to raising the money? What does it mean when it comes to the donors? What does it mean to my board members? Like, how am I relating all of this? If I wanted, let's say I was a brand new nonprofit leader, and I want to show my board of directors that I know what I'm talking about, that I'm really committed, and I want to get them engaged and get them excited in the end of year planning, I would come to them with some goals that are realistic, but I would say, you know what, this is what we're going to do. And this is the calendar that we're going to set it out in. So this is what we're going to do over the next week, 2 weeks, 3 weeks, 4 weeks. There are 13 weeks between, well, it's from 1st of October to the end of December is 13 weeks. Now we have about 11. So we have about 11 weeks left. We have 11 weeks. What are we going to get done in those 11 weeks? And then who is going to handle which area of responsibility? So we're going to go through all of that today in very specific detail. So a deep dive on goal setting. So I think we could, if you take broad strokes, if you take the big picture, and let's say that you're sitting in a board meeting and the board says, oh, we've got to raise money before the end of the year. Oh, yes, we've got to raise money. How much should we raise? Oh, we really need to raise $100,000. Okay, great. Let's raise $100,000. Okay, that's one way to set a goal. It's not necessarily realistic. It's not necessarily built on anything. There's no statistics behind it. Do we know what our programming is costing? I mean, who's coming up with the number, right? It sounds good, but is there anything behind it? So what we want to do is look at what is the target number that we feel is achievable. Achievable is important because if it's achievable, we feel encouraged by it. We feel positive. We feel like we can get it done. We don't feel already overwhelmed before we even start, right? that's one thing that I think is really, really important. If we're going to activate a team of ambassadors, people that are involved in development, our board members, our staff members, volunteers, is it achievable? If someone came to me and said, well, I want to raise 500,000 between now and the end of the year, and what they've raised so far this year is 200,000, it's probably not a realistic number. And they're not the only ones that, or I'm not the only one who's going to think when I hear that from them, that that number is not realistic. But if they come to me and they say, we want to raise $50,000, I say, you know what? I think we can do that. Now we need to figure out, how is that number going to be achieved? Is it going to be individual donations? Are we just going for an annual fund raise of 50,000? Are there some matching gifts potentially in there? Is there a major gift or several major gifts in there? The other way that we could do this is by achieving 25% of our total annual fundraising goal, or 50%, or 10%, or 2%. So coming up with a number that is a percentage of the annual fundraising goal. That is a very effective way to approach what you need to raise by the end of the year when you're dealing with donors. Donors like to know what percentage, how far along in the percentage of your annual funds have been raised. So if your goal was to raise $250,000 this year and you've raised 200,000, you're 80% there. They like that. That's encouraging. That feels doable to a donor. They're like, you know, they only have 20% to go, and it's whatever, $50,000. I want to be part of that. So we have to think also on the approach and how we're going to present this, because this is a marketing opportunity. The reality is fundraising is marketing. We are promoting, we are sharing the value, the impact of what we do, but we're also talking numbers with people. And, you know, it has to make sense. It has to be realistic. And I think people like to feel like they can be part of something that's achievable. Okay, another goal that we could set is donor engagement and retention goals. So increasing donor retention by 15%. What does that mean? Well, that means that the people that gave last year are going to stay with us, and they're going to continue to give. You're never going to get every single person who gave last year to give this year. It just doesn't happen. They don't. It's like memberships, Angie. Not every single person who had a membership last year is going to pay for a membership this year. There's always, right? Darn, I know, there's always a little bit of attrition. It's the same with your donor retention. But you want to increase, so set a goal of increasing that donor retention by 15% over the year before, or 20% over the year before. Now, there are some key reports that we talk about. When we talk about donor retention, we talk about Leibunt and Seibunt. So last year, but unfortunately not this year, so the people that gave to us last year, but unfortunately not this year, are the Leibunts. And some year, but not this year. So if they gave maybe 2 years ago or 3 years ago, but they didn't give this year, they're called Seibunts. The people that are easiest to engage and re-engage are the Leibunts. The harder ones are the Seibunts, because the longer that span of time between the last time they gave and you reaching back out to them, or them giving again, the more time that goes by, the harder it is to get them to give again. But those two reports are really, really important. If you are already using a donor database, you should be mindful of those reports. And it's not hard to run them. If you're in NonProfit or Bloomerang, they're already established reports. You can just hit a button and you run them. If you are using Excel because it's early days still, that's fine. Just track it. Track what year the people gave. You can do it by column. Did they give in 2020, 2021, 22, 23, 24, and just kind of see where the gaps are. So that would be a good goal to have. And then converting one-time donors into recurring donors. That's another great goal to establish. So you could aim to turn 20% of the one-time donors from one year-end campaign into monthly or recurring donors. So that's another great goal that you can look at establishing. So again, this is to give you ideas of goal setting, right? Because we always talk about, oh, what's the end of your goal? What's the end of your goal? It's a number. No, it's not just a number. It can be so many different things. And this is why, again, and I think of you, Eduardo, okay? And we think of Kiwanis and we think, okay, so maybe we haven't been super aggressive in our fundraising efforts up to this point. No problem, right? We always have a starting point, but let's set goals that are relative to where we are today, because we know that there's potential. We know that there's a possibility out there of getting new donors or prospects or members. So your goal, Eduardo, may be very different from the goal of another nonprofit organization, but it doesn't mean you don't have goals. And it doesn't mean you shouldn't consider realistic goals, given the fact that we are coming to this time of year where people are used to seeing activity. They're used to seeing, it's not unusual for you to suddenly like get into action and start launching some different initiatives and establish some actual objectives of acquiring new donors or acquiring new members or retaining some donors or renewing some donors from last year. So again, when we look at goals, we have a broad range. We're going to go through a few more too, because this is just the first few. But I wanted you to have in mind that as we talk about the campaign for end of year, we're talking about so many different ways that you can approach this and that you can measure things. And remember, even the smallest change, incremental change, can be huge. If we think about, if we did 5% improvement in whatever it may be, donor retention rate over 5 years, we did it this year and next year and the next year and then, I mean, it makes a huge difference. Yes, Eduardo, you have a question.
Kirsten, the best way to engage donors, would you suggest that via email, in person, via phone? How would you do that?
Give me an example of a donor you have in mind. Tell me, would this be someone who maybe mailed in a check for $100? Is that the kind of donor?
That could be it, or a brand new person that you approach for the very first time about Kiwanis.
Mm-hmm. My favorite is always in person, if you have an opportunity in person to talk to them. My second choice would be by phone. Now, again, when we think about this scenario, we do have to think about what is a natural and comfortable way to approach them, right? So it's not stiff and it's not sort of forced, but an event is a wonderful opportunity to introduce people. You could bring them to a meeting, right? That's a great way to bring a potential donor to the table. But then your follow-up should be personal, should be by phone, it should be by email. It should be a close connection. You're building a relationship. If you have donors that have been faithfully giving to your organization, and let's say they are recurring donors and they've been giving by credit card, and they're used to that, and you don't have a mailing address for them, email is just fine. That's what they're used to, and they've kind of established a little bit of a separation. For many of them, you may not even have a phone number. Now, if you have a phone number and you have a recurring donor who's been giving maybe $50 a month, I would look for an opportunity to make something out of their giving. So for example, if they reach a 6-month mark, that's a great time to call them and say, John, I wanted to thank you. You've actually just reached a milestone. You've been giving to us for 6 months as a recurring donor, and I wanted to thank you personally. I'm on the board of directors. This is very meaningful to us. I thought also, excuse me, my allergies are acting up. There are a lot of cats in Istanbul. It's true. There are two right in front of me as I'm sitting here. But I think it's a great opportunity for you to recognize the donor, but also in that conversation to say, John, I'm curious, you've been such a loyal supporter for the last 6 months. Is there anything about the club that that I can answer for you? Are there any questions that you may have? Is there something coming up that I could share with you? Do you know about the special new members dinner that we have coming up in February? I wondered if you had heard about that. So I think finding a way to also steward them a little bit, look after them, make them feel nurtured and cared for, right? Eduardo, you have the perfect personality for this. I think for a lot of people, it's a little bit more difficult, right? To be thinking of ways that they can naturally bond with a donor, but there's no reason why not. And so if you find an opportunity, especially if they've been giving for 1 year as a recurring donor, it's a beautiful time to give people a call. If you have a member that's hit like a 3-year milestone or a 2-year or 5-year or whatever, great opportunity to give them a call. I am always a fan of the phone call. Well, in person first, then the phone call, and then the email.
You're the best.
That would
Thank you so much.
no,
Appreciate it.
the in person makes such a difference.
Beautiful.
Okay, and so then you could also come up with a plan. Okay, so we have a goal to attract 100 new donors. Well, what if for you 100 is ridiculous because you only have 20? Okay, then it could be 10 new donors, could be 5 new donors. It doesn't matter. It doesn't matter. You will be ahead of the game. In January, you will look back and you will say, oh my goodness, we now have 15 new names on our email newsletter list. Excellent. That is progress. So again, when we're thinking of goals, we don't need to reach for the sky. We can also just make sure that they're realistic, they're relative to our organization. Engaging 50% of your new donors with a follow-up plan. So maybe you decide that it's the 50% that gave you a mailing address, or it's the 50% that gave you a phone number. You're going to come up with a plan to engage them. Someone is going to call them, or someone is going to invite them to an event. Let's see what else we have for major goals. 5 new major gift commitments. Could be 5, could be 2, could be 25. 5 new major donors. So that requires some strategy. It requires sitting down with your board members and your development team and figuring out who those 5 individuals could be. It also involves figuring out what is a major gift for your organization. What is that number? Maybe it's $1,000. Maybe it's $25,000. Maybe it's $200. What is a major gift for your organization? Does everyone know how to figure out what a major gift for your organization is? Do we all have an idea of that? Okay, let me run through it just in case. So if you look at all of the gifts that you've received over the past, let's say 2 years, and on average, the gifts are about $50 to $100. And then you have maybe out of 100 gifts, you have, let's say 80% of those are $50 to $100. And then you have a couple that are 200. You have 3 that are 500, and you have 2 that are 1,000. So in your case, I would say a major gift is somewhere between, it's probably 500 and up would be a major gift. Maybe 250 even. That might already be a major gift. Most of your gifts are 50 to 100. 250 might already be a major gift, but I would say probably a 500 and up would be a major gift for you. So you sort of look at where the average of the gifts fall, what's a little bit on the higher range, and that would be what you would call a major gift. And your major gift number is going to change over time as well as people give more to your organization. So you could set some major gift commitments. You could launch a $10,000 matching gift challenge. Again, these are all numbers that are just thrown out there, but it could be a $2,000 matching gift challenge. How do we do that? Well, a great way to do this is if someone approaches you and says, I'm thinking of making a gift for the end of the year, and I'd like to make it a substantial gift. I'd like it to be $1,000. You say, wow, that is fantastic. That's so exciting. Mrs. Smith, would you consider allowing us to use your gift as a matching gift challenge? More than likely, they will say yes, because they will realize that if they allow you to use the matching gift, use this as a matching gift, you get to bring in $2,000, their 1,000 plus another 1,000. I've never had it fail. everywhere from $1,000 up to a $25,000 that I have now. It's like a recurring with an organization that I help around the holidays every year. They get their $25,000 matching gift every single year. And that's because I went to the donor and asked. I said, this is so special. This gift that you're giving us means so much to us. And it would really be amazing if we could try and raise the additional 1,000 to match it, or 25,000 to match it. And you find that donors are really touched by it. They're really, I don't know, they feel very special that they get to be included in this process. So I would encourage you to consider matching gift challenges as well. Does anyone have a question about matching gift challenges, by the way? We'll have plenty of time for questions a little bit later on, but I just wanted to check. Not at the moment? Okay. And I can't see everyone. I can't see everyone's hands, but Angie, you let me know if anyone
I've got
else.
an eye out for you, no worries.
Okay, perfect. Great. All right. You could also work on your peer-to-peer fundraising and ambassador engagement goals. So recruiting 15 peer-to-peer fundraising ambassadors. Maybe for you it's 5, maybe for you it's 50. But how about recruiting some ambassadors to host individual fundraising pages, maybe on social media? They could host a cocktail in their home. They could bring guests to an event. Basically, it's spreading the word, being an ambassador. Great people to recruit as ambassadors: your friends, your network, your colleagues, your buddies, your mom, your sister, your cousin, people who know how passionate you are about the cause that you're involved in. They're great ambassadors. They're great supporters and champions for you. But recruiting ambassadors is another great goal. You could raise $5,000 through peer-to-peer efforts. So what are peer-to-peer fundraisers? Peer-to-peer fundraisers are people that go out and raise amongst their friends. So maybe there's a women's tennis club, and they say, okay, we are going to have all of the ladies in our tennis club chip in $50, $100, and we're going to raise $5,000 for the Kiwanis Club, or for Bound for College, or for, scholar career coaching. So peer-to-peer efforts are great. They're wonderful incentives for people. And you can actually motivate people by giving them some sort of little benefit. You could do something special. You can give them a gift card. You can do something special for them. But peer-to-peer fundraisers can work really well. And they actually, this is a great tool for a board member who says, I don't know how to fundraise. I don't want to fundraise. I don't want to ask for checks. I can't hold an event in my home. No, it's just too much. Okay, would you go out through your network and get $50 from 20 people? Would you be willing to do that? Oh yeah, I can do that. Great, fantastic. So it's really interesting how, if it sounds so big, like, oh, I've got to fundraise, I've got to go ask for a check, it gets overwhelming. But if we set a target, like, go out and ask your friends and see if you can come up with 20 people that'll give you $50 or $100, especially if you can give them a goal of saying, okay, if we can raise $1,000 for, let's see, books for school children, or 20 hot meals for a family at Christmas time. Something like that is really powerful. That's a big hook, and that will get them motivated. That will definitely get these people out there and raising money for you. But the benefit of it too is that you now have your person going out talking to 20 people about the importance of this organization and the work that it does. So that's huge. Now you've got promoters out there working on your behalf. Something to think about. Okay, we could also increase our social media and digital engagement goals. Metrics such as likes and shares and comments. Those are always things that you can set the goal of increasing. Or you could set a goal of achieving a certain number of clicks on an online donation page. And that could be through social media ads, email campaigns, website traffic. So that's another couple of great ways that you can do this through your digital efforts. Email and direct mail campaign goals. Those are also very powerful. Open rates, those are important. Now, open rates depend a lot as well on the subject line, on testing things out, on what story are you telling as you're sending these emails out. Let me give you an example. If you have an email that has a video in it, and it's a video about maybe a homeless child and their family's needs over the upcoming holidays, or if you have a video from the executive director of an organization telling a story of transformation and of impact in the community. If you have an email that starts out with little Johnny's stomach was rumbling again as he went to bed that night, and he knew that he probably was not going to have a hot meal for a few days. I mean, think of ways that you can make this a powerful message. You can make it a compelling story, but don't be afraid to try out different ways. You could send one type of email to 20 people on your email list, see how it works, see what the open rate is. Then send a different type of email to 20 more people on your email list, see what kind of results you get. But all of that, they call it A/B testing or whatever kind of testing with emails, but the simple reality of it is finding ways to get that message across, getting people to open the email, getting people to relate and have the story resonate so that they feel compelled to read. They may not necessarily take action, but they feel compelled to read. And then another goal could be to generate $10,000 from direct mail appeals. So targeted direct mail campaigns to high potential donors. So this is a little bit different than just a general email appeal. This would be you are actually sending a direct mail email to a potential donor or a prospect or someone who has donated already previously. And your goal is to get them to click on the donate button. So now we're not just talking about sending out the email to our entire email list. We're actually targeting people. Let's go back to what we were saying about the lie bunts and the sigh bunts, right? Do you remember what those were? The last year, but unfortunately not this year. Some year, but unfortunately not this year. Well, each individual on those lists has a different history with you. So if they gave last year and they haven't given this year, maybe they haven't given because they forgot. Maybe they haven't given because there's another organization that was a little more compelling to them and they're thinking, I wonder if maybe I should give to them instead. Maybe they're wondering how effective your actual programming has been. And so what I would do is I would take all of those thoughts, everything I just mentioned, I would weave them into an email to those people. And I would say, did you know, or maybe we didn't share with you the impact we had over the last year. Did you know that we were able to transform the lives of 1,300 children in 2023? Maybe we didn't thank you enough. So let me tell you right now from the bottom of my heart that we are so grateful that you supported us in 2023. Maybe you're considering supporting other organizations. That's entirely your decision. But what I can tell you is that if you continue to support us, we will continue to make magic happen in the lives of children. So that's another approach you can take. And again, we're segmenting, right? Because now we've taken that group that gave to us last year but haven't given to us this year. We don't know why they're not haven't given to us this year, but we're just going to go ahead and talk to some of those issues that maybe are in their minds. Maybe they aren't, but still, let's put it out there. But we want to just say, you have been our supporter in the past. We cannot thank you enough. I'm not sure why you haven't been able to give to us this year, but let me assure you that we count on your donation, and we really hope that you'll continue to support us in the future. My apologies for my allergies. Okay, so those are direct mail approaches. The some year but not last year is another one that, again, you know, we don't want to take the safe road. You never want to be safe with these things. You don't want to just send out a donation request. You want to say, well, we know that you gave us a gift back in 2022, and we were so grateful for that. And we're hoping that you'll support us in 2024 because we do need your gift. We do need your donation. We need your support to keep going. So we want to just come right out. But that's when we talk about direct mail appeals, we really do have to segment very specifically and very carefully how we're going to approach people. And that email, it's the same email, but you're only tweaking a few little sections and a few little words, and you're just reworking it, right? You're reworking it depending on who you're sending it to. Okay. We could also set some event and community engagement goals. So we could host one virtual fundraising event. Giving Tuesday is a good opportunity to do that. Maybe I'll jump into that now. I can't remember what my section is on Giving Tuesday and how far back it is, how in depth I go into it. Let me just take a look and see how much I get into Giving Tuesday, or if I should talk about it right now. So give me just a moment. Does anyone have questions as we talk about these different goals? I know it's a lot, but I wanted you to see it's, you know, again, it's so easy for us to just talk about these goals and, oh, we need to set campaign goals as we're getting to the end of the year. And I wanted to really talk that through so that you're all very, very clear on the fact that this is not, oh, I do have a whole section on Giving Tuesday. Okay. This is not something that is unattainable. It is totally within your reach. And you can come up with some very, very reasonable goals that are relevant to your organization. They fit nicely based on your size, your capacity, your goals between now and the end of the year. And we're just tailoring it, right? And by the way, I'm not saying we're going to go after every single one of these. I'm giving you ideas. Giving you ideas so that when the board says, great, Kirsten, we think you should raise $200,000 by the end of the year, you can say, you know what? I have some other goals that I'd like to focus on that are also going to move the needle. They're going to make a very big difference in the future of this organization. And it's not just about the financial goal, which is important, but we want to make sure that that financial goal makes sense, that it's relevant, but I also want to focus on donors. I want to focus on the donor experience. I want to focus on how many donors are we losing every year? So these are all things that, you know, you have an opportunity to educate the board of directors a little bit too, right? So that they can learn that it's not just about the financial goal. Okay, so let me go back to my slides. If you'll excuse me for 1 second, I'm just going to blow my nose. I apologize. Give me 1 second.
Lisa, if you, in the meantime, you want to unmute yourself and ask your question, this would be a good time.
Yeah, I was wondering if Kirsten has a preferred software that is used to track donors, lost donors, adding, you know, all of those kinds of things when you're doing these campaigns.
Yes, my favorite one is Bloomerang. I have started using Bloomerang almost exclusively in the last couple of years, just by, I don't know, it's just been coincidence that many of my clients and people that we work with, even the people that I volunteer with, have moved to Bloomerang. For a long time, it was Donor Perfect. I know a lot of people like Little Green Light, which I think is fairly inexpensive. But Bloomerang, to me, is the most user-friendly. The support that they provide is phenomenal. The downside of Bloomerang is it's not ideal for prospects. It's great for donors, but if you have a lot of prospects, they charge you as the numbers of your database increase. Now, GiveButter is free, and they just charge you a percentage on the amount of the donation that comes in. I love GiveButter. I have not tried to run reports in GiveButter though, so I don't know how those reports would be, but I can't imagine that you wouldn't be able to run them. But the thing I like about GiveButter is, and by the way, I'm so glad you asked this question, Lisa, because I do like to talk for a minute about databases. GiveButter has the text to give option, which is huge, right? So, Eduardo, if it's Kiwanis, I think you could be, I think Kiwanis, it may be too long, but you could say Kiwanis, and you text Kiwanis to 53555. It's always 53555. And it'll pop up on your phone, and it'll say, oh, would you like to make a donation to the Kiwanis Club of blah, blah, blah? And you say yes, and it talks you through, and you do it right on your phone. It's a piece of cake, and it really encourages giving. And for Giving Tuesday, it's a huge, huge tool, huge, because it makes it so easy. You can also do things like auctions. You can do events on GiveButter. It's really fairly sophisticated considering that it's free. The great thing about GiveButter is that I actually, even if you have Bloomerang, you can integrate GiveButter with Bloomerang so that everything from GiveButter feeds into Bloomerang. So all of your donors from GiveButter will eventually wind up in Bloomerang, which is awesome. But Bloomerang does not have a text to give option. So you can use the GiveButter text to give or campaigns or things like that. So that's really neat. I know that people have hosted live events through GiveButter, and they do like these challenges. I mean, it's amazing, but I think Bloomerang is probably my favorite these days.
You mentioned 3, Bloomerang, a second one, and then GiveButter. What was that second one you mentioned?
So GiveButter would be like either the bare bones, you have nothing and you don't have a budget for a software. I would use GiveButter, or a supplement. Otherwise, I would recommend Bloomerang, Donor Perfect, Little Green Light.
Okay,
Those would be the
Little
3.
Green, yeah.
Yes. Now,
Thank you.
Donor Perfect and Little Green Light are available through TechSoup at a significant discount. So that's always a plus. Bloomerang is not available with a discount through TechSoup. So TechSoup, for Lisa, you're familiar with TechSoup,
I
right?
am, yes.
Okay. So TechSoup, you all should be signed up with TechSoup and should be taking advantage of the multiple discounts available there, including QuickBooks that's discounted, Zoom packages that are discounted. My goodness, what don't they have on there? They have so many things, so many software opportunities there.
Thank you.
Yes, absolutely. Okay, other questions up to this point? Anything else? Okay, because then we're going to, I have a couple more goals that I want to go through with you. Let's see. Let me go back to where I was. Okay, so we talked about direct mail. So now we're on events. Okay, great. Let's go into share. Whoops. Oh, I guess I just can't. All right, let me share my screen. And let's see. Oh, not from start. Oops. Correct. Oh, well, I guess that was the start. Okay, excuse me for just a moment while I fast forward. I'll be as fast as I can. Okay, so no, sorry. We are going backwards. All right, so events and community engagement and virtual events, virtual fundraising, Giving Tuesday. I'm going to talk a little bit more about that. That's another thing that I think is a little bit intimidating. You know, we talked about the Giving Tuesday having 50 people, 100 people manning the phones. I'm going to talk you through some very, very easy ways that you can host a Giving Tuesday event. And it doesn't matter if you make a tiny little dent or a huge dent. It doesn't matter if you raise money or just raise awareness. You will have some great opportunities to do something for Giving Tuesday that are not going to overwhelm you and that even a team of 1 could handle. Increase attendance, event attendance by 20%. You could make that your goal. Do you have an end of year event where you express gratitude to all of your donors, or to you allow your beneficiaries to come together and share in the joy of the year that they've had together? Increase attendance by 20%. That is a wonderful goal that you could set for yourself. Donor stewardship. A great goal to set would be to thank your donors within 48 hours, if you're not already doing that, or coming up with a way like a personalized handwritten note. That's a great way to thank people. That would be something that you could say, well, now every donor over $100 is going to get a handwritten thank you note. So putting together some goals like that, sharing impact updates with a certain number of your donors, providing an impact report maybe to the top tier donors of your organization is a great policy to institute. So just be thinking of ways that you can put some of these goals in place that are really going to make a difference. And again, I know we went through a lot of them. You're going to have these slides. You can pick through and just kind of look at it critically and say, okay, well, these are some realistic ones and these maybe not so much, or we don't really have any donors to retain, so maybe I'm not going to focus on that. Maybe I'll just focus on new donors this year, or even just adding names to an email newsletter list. That right there, if only everyone would focus on that. At your next board meeting, ask your board members, every board member, to give you 10 names and 10 email addresses of people that you can add to your newsletter list. And they say, oh yeah, I'll text that to you. You know what? We're going to do it right now while we're all sitting here and we're just chit-chatting. Just jot them down for me. Here's a notepad. Can I just get you to jot down the names of 10 people and their email addresses, and I'll add them to the newsletter list? They'll love to hear about what we're doing, won't they? Yeah, they will. Great. So, be as convincing as you can and as persuasive as you can. But I'm telling you, if you have 5 board members give you 10 names and email addresses, you have 50 new names. That's huge. You've now just exceeded your goal of adding names to your newsletter list for the end of the year. Questions on that? Would anybody like me to come to the next board meeting and go through this exercise for them? I will. I will.
You have already an open invitation. Let us know when.
I know those board members are going to go, oh gosh, Kirsten's
Oh
joining the
gosh.
meeting. Yeah. They
I'm
invited
going, oh
Kirsten.
gosh, right now. What I was wondering with newsletters, must you get a pre-approval from people that are willing or able to receive them, or can you send it out without their approval?
Here's what I would do. I would forward the first one. So the first one goes out. You get a copy of it and forward it to these people and say, John on our board gave me your email address. I hope you don't mind that I'm sending you our first email news, or a copy of the newsletter that I thought you might be interested in, or he thought you might want to take a look at. We'd love for you to subscribe. Here's the link below. So that way you're sort of asking for forgiveness. You're doing it appropriately, but honestly, John did give you the email address. So, and I think for one time, if you say, I thought I would send this, you mentioned the board member's name, you're sort of saying you're not going to be doing it. You're not subscribing them, but you're giving them the opportunity to subscribe.
Thanks.
Angie, would you approve of that? Okay.
Sure would.
Okay.
I'll send you my first one, Angie. I hope you'll approve it. And
I think I just got off your board last night, so I'm fine.
And I'll send one to Patty as well. She's very nice.
Here we go. Everybody get ready. You're going to start getting everybody else's newsletters. What other questions do we have
I'll go
so
through
far?
the Chamber's membership and let them know that Angie and Patty gave me their name. If it's no.
Sir, you keep my name out of your mouth. Thank you.
All right. Okay. And then if we want to look at metrics, so metrics, some of the ways that we talked a lot about these, about increasing the percentage of retaining your donors, your stewardship, but you could also look at your conversion rate. So what is the percent? And these are easy to Google, or ChatGPT will help you put together some of these metrics. As a rule, it's not so fun, I think, when you're presenting this to a board, when you're putting it together. But boy, do board members love to see this afterwards. So I think it would be good if you start to think about some of these metrics that you want to track. And you could say, okay, so we never really tracked our conversion rate for 2023, but this year I wanted to tell you that the number of prospects who became donors after Eduardo called them and asked them for a gift is 17%. We're going to keep an eye on this because maybe Eduardo isn't doing such a great job as an ambassador, or maybe he's doing an exceptional job as an ambassador. But if we're not tracking it, we have nothing to measure against, right? So again, we may have nothing to track this year against last year, but if we start this year, we've got this year and next year. So next year we'll have something to look back on and say, how did we do? How did we do? What is this person's experience like? How are they enjoying interacting with us, learning about us? How did they find the meeting? How did they find the event? How did they think the newsletter was? Was it convincing? Was it informative? Did it really tell the story? What did they think of the tour? Did they become a donor after a tour? Maybe the initial contact is a tour of your facility. Well, what kind of impact did we make on them? We should know all of this. This is reviews, basically, right? These are all reviews. It's like a review of ourselves and our organization. How are we performing? What is my experience as a chamber member? How is my interest in renewing my membership? All of these things can be tracked. Average gift size, donor retention rate, cost per dollar raised. Okay, if we're going to launch a Giving Tuesday campaign and we have 2 people that are working this campaign, how much does it cost to have their time involved and have their energy and the resources that they needed? And maybe we got a few donations of some books that we could send out as thank you gifts to our donors. And how much did it cost to mail those, and how much? So think about everything that's involved. So you could come up with a cost per campaign, cost per event. So think about ways that you can really be measuring. Measurements are important. These are really, really important tools. And like I say, nobody likes to sit here and figure out what we're going to be measuring, but boy, boards sure do love to look at that after the fact. So I say that because I want you to be thinking in advance. What other questions do we have? Does anyone have any other questions so far? Because now we're actually going to go into how we get into some of these more logistical pieces, right? We talked about the goals. We talked about all the different goals that you can establish for yourself as you come up to the campaign. But now I want to talk you through actually achieving these goals. So what does that mean? How are you going to clean up your data? What does it mean to clean up your database? What does that even mean? Somebody says, oh, well, we should clean up the database before we run the SciBot report. What? What do you mean clean it up? Who's cleaning it up? What's there to clean? We're going to talk about that. So now we're going to really go into some of these actual steps. I hope this is helpful. Is this helpful? Yeah. Okay. Excellent. All right. Great. All right. And you're still monitoring for questions, right, Angie, in case anyone has questions. Give me a second. Going back to my share. This time I'm going to do it properly. Share. Current slide. Okay. So how do we get it done? All right. So let's talk about the first one, which is the donor data review and segmentation. All right. So first of all, we're going to segment our donors. Segmenting your donors just means that you are running these reports and that you're doing different things with the reports, with the content of the reports. So your LIBUNs that we mentioned, your SciBUNs that we mentioned, your recurring donors, your people that are giving on a monthly basis, your major donors, your prospects. Okay, so and what this means when we talk about segmenting is, what are we doing with each of them? What's our strategy? So if we let's come up with the categories. Right here we have 4, okay? LIBUNs, SciBUNs, recurring donors, and prospects. There are 4 very unique and distinct groups. Can everyone see my screen? Okay. Now, those 4, what are we going to do with our LIBUNs? They're last year, but not this year. Boy, we're going to do everything we can to get them to give this year. For some reason, they haven't given yet this year. Maybe they just haven't gotten enough reminders. Maybe they haven't gotten any reminder. Maybe we've been too shy to remind them that they need to give a gift before the end of the year, right? The SIBUNs, what do we want to do with them? We also want to re-engage them. Really, really important. Recurring donors. There are a couple of different things you can do with recurring donors. Recurring donors are typically monthly, typically on a credit card, typically $25, $50, $100, maybe $200. Here's the challenge with recurring donors. You have to be really careful with this. People often forget that they have put you on a recurring donation plan. So what that means is, if for whatever reason the credit card gets declined, let's say they got a new credit card and it has a different date on it, right? Expiration date. And the credit card got declined because it's in your system. It's in Bloomerang and it just got automatically declined. And you now call them to ask them if they would be willing to continue with their recurring gift. And the credit card was declined because of the expiration date. One of two things is going to happen. They're going to say, absolutely, love what you're doing. Here's my new credit card. Or they're going to say, oh my God, you know what? I'm so glad you called because I completely forgot that I even had this on a recurring donation. I don't really think I can afford this anymore. So those calls, I'm telling you, because I've made lots of them, you have sort of a 50-50 chance. I think there's a way that you can circumvent this. I think that if you stay very visible with those donors and very grateful, and you remind them on a regular basis of how important it is that they continue to give their gift. And this may be, maybe this is your monthly newsletter is a tiny bit different for that group of people. Maybe it is because you are a valued monthly donor. We are putting you in our platinum donor category. And you get to have a Zoom call with the executive director for 45 minutes once a month. And we'll tell you all about what's happening at the organization. You don't have to join, but we'd love to give them something special. Give them a reason to stay committed. Because the last thing you want is for them to go, oh my God, I've had this thing on my credit card for a year and I completely forgot about it. Get it off. No, I can't afford it. I'm not getting value out of it. I don't really even remember what you guys do. I mean, that would be the worst kind of phone call to have with someone. So my point with this is that you have an opportunity to stay in front of people. Recurring donors are those people. Prospects. Prospects is another segment. They need to be nurtured. They need to be warmed up. They need to be, your goal is to get them to learn about the organization. Your goal should be to get them to a face-to-face, some kind of face-to-face encounter at some point, to attend an event with you, to come for a tour, to have a phone call with you. We really want to try and do something special with prospects. So our strategy with them is going to be a little bit different as well. So then everything that you do within each of these, and maybe to make things easy starting out, you have two categories. You have donors and prospects. Keep it very simple. As you get a little more involved, a little more sophisticated, a little more, then maybe you can add some different categories of donors, prospects, and your approach to each of them. But just be thinking of how you want to handle each of those groups. Come up with a plan, write it out. Write out what the plan is for each of them. Okay, cleaning up your database. That means addresses, emails, households. What do I mean by households? Well, if John Smith sends a check, on the check it says John and Mary Smith, and he says, but the return address on the envelope says John Smith. So we enter him as John Smith in the database, but he writes a note and says, we love what you're doing, John and Mary Smith. That should be John and Mary Smith in your database. That's not John Smith in your database. So that's a household. You may have to, and depending on what database you're using, you may have to make that household where it's John Smith and Mary Smith. Sometimes you can put John and Mary. Every database is a little bit different. That's not just a John Smith, right? That is a John and Mary household. So just those are the types of things that are so important when you're working through the database itself. Capitalizations. When people sign up to make a recurring gift on your website, they enter their own name and their own address, right? Because they're giving a credit card. Most people these days, believe it or not, are not capitalizing. Okay, you think it doesn't matter until you're running your end of year appeal letters. You're sending out this beautiful letter to your donors, asking them for a donation so that you can make your $100,000 end of year goal. And it's on beautiful letterhead, Mr. and Mrs. John Smith, blah, blah, blah. But John isn't capitalized. Smith isn't capitalized. Mary isn't capitalized. 47, Nifty Lane, not capitalized. Those need to be cleaned up. That absolutely must get cleaned up. And it requires somebody doing it every day. You need to keep an eye on your database. As you get new names entered, new addresses entered, somebody needs to just take a look. It's a quick scan. Every morning, take a quick scan, see what's come in automatically. If people have a way to make a donation on your website with a credit card, you're going to have to check the donor database. Same with emails. When you have emails that are being, I am telling you, okay, we're going to take a quick break for, this is just like an entertainment moment, okay? There are cats everywhere. I love cats, but I have allergies. So that's why, I'm so sorry, but that's why my nose is running. My allergies are bad. But there are, right now I can see 3. There are 3 cats around me. Oh, and there's another one over there. So yeah, there are cats everywhere. It's
Where
very
are
entertaining.
you that there's cats everywhere? I'm curious now.
I'm in Istanbul, Lisa.
Oh,
I'm in the last day of my vacation. I know.
oh my God.
So legitimately, there are cats everywhere. But I love it because everyone is so sweet to them and everyone looks after them and feeds them and takes care of them. They are the kindest, sweetest, most well-behaved, well-bred, like they're in great condition, clean, adorable. Anyway, it's very entertaining. I've taken lots of cat pictures. Okay, email addresses. If you go through, so when you go into a donor database, or if you even have, let's say you use MailChimp or and you get like your list of emails that got rejected, right? That didn't go through, take a good look at them because often when people give you their email address, they write GAMIL or, or they don't put the .com or their full name and they misspell their name on the email address. So all of these little things, sometimes they don't put in a zip code. That's what we mean by cleaning up your database. Your database needs to be squeaky clean because if you're going to start, here's the thing too. When we don't have a huge budget for marketing and we've embarked on the idea of sending out an annual appeal for the end of year, which you should be doing, you should be sending out something mailed to at least a handful of people in your donor database to ask them for a contribution, a gift, support. When you start running those letters and you see the errors and you start thinking about the wasted ink and the wasted paper and the wasted envelopes, or they start getting sent back from the post office and you've already paid postage on them, you'll be angry that you didn't have a nice, clean database where everything works and everything is accurate. There's always going to be a few, but just do the best you can. And then make sure that you're looking at the high potential donors slightly differently. What do I mean by that? Well, let's say that one of our board members gave us the names of a couple of individuals that they think have the potential to make a bigger gift. When I say bigger, more than just the $50, standard gift or even if you have a subscription program for your organization, more than just the standard. Well, that letter to that individual or to that couple or to that family or to those few people should be a little bit different. Maybe the substance of the letter is going to be the same, but if you could have the board member who recommended them write a few words at the bottom of that letter before it goes in the mail, that's golden. If you could, even yourself as an executive director, as a board member, write a few words on the bottom of that letter in handwritten, you know, John and Mary, we would so look forward to seeing you at our event in January. It really means so much to us. We're hoping that you've come to learn a lot about the organization. You'll consider supporting us. So keep those aside. Keep the high potential donors aside. Make it a little personal. Now, the other thing you could do if you're thinking about personal, those are the ones you can follow up with a phone call. You mail them something, you follow up with a phone call. Just wanted to make sure you got my letter. I realize that the holidays are a busy time. A lot of people are asking for donations, but I wanted to make sure that you know that you're in our thoughts, and we are certainly hopeful that you'll consider making a gift to our organization this year. Or you can just, if that feels too pushy, you can just say, wanted to see if there were any questions that I could answer. Is there anything that maybe you'd like to know about what we're doing this year? Or how many families we're helping at Christmas time? Or, you know, Lisa, you have a question.
I do. And I know that the topic today is year-end giving, right?
Mhm.
But because of the plethora of gift giving or, you know, donation campaigns at the end of years, is there value to an organization just doing their campaign completely outside of year end, or is it tend to be, it's the norm in the industry and it's expected because we're trying to, you know, get that last push? Hey, you want to, you know, get some additional, you know, tax savings, right? Get rid of the donation dollars, all that kind of stuff. Because as I think things through, you know, everybody's coming and doing it year end. What about doing it in March, just before tax season, right? What is the industry norm from the cadence of these campaigns?
Well, I'd say there are two angles to this. The first is there are people that are going to be concerned with the tax deductibility of their gift, 100%, and they must give their gift by December 31st. They have to.
Mhm.
But that's not most people. Most people are giving because it's the right thing to do, because it's the giving season. Do you have an opportunity to do things a little differently? Yes, you absolutely do. It might be a little challenging.
Mm.
It might be a little challenging, but I'd say if anything, it would be challenging internally. I don't know that it's challenging in terms of donors, because donors kind of go with what you tell them. And if you were to explain to them that the way your calendar works or the way the fundraising works for your organization really makes it critical that you raise the most dollars by March because you have programs launching in June every year.
Mhm.
Is that the case with you, by the way, Lisa?
Yeah, well, okay, so let me just remind you, I don't have a nonprofit yet, but all of
Right.
the education I'm getting is getting ready for that, right?
Mhm.
So the intention for my nonprofit is in education, right? Management development, providing access, right, to these management
Yes.
development programs for inner city, underprivileged, all the things, right? And
Mhm.
so from that perspective, our goal is to have those funds before the school year starts, right? So that we're going with the educational programming that's tend to be, oh, school starts in August, September, we need money before then. That's
Yes.
my just outside of the box thinking without having a better, you know, idea. That's the plan. That's the thought.
Okay. In that case, I think you have a beautiful opportunity to change things up a little bit.
Okay. Yeah.
And I would push it, I would leverage it, I would promote it.
Right.
I would, I think you have a very unique opportunity. And I think the donor fatigue that we see going into October, November, December will be a little bit eliminated. That
Right.
won't be a factor so much for you.
Right.
And it makes perfect sense when you think of school system, school years.
Right.
I kind of like that, actually.
Okay. Awesome.
I
Well,
would
good.
encourage you to give that a try.
Yeah, I will.
Yeah.
And you'll be helping me eventually. So
Yeah,
I'm
absolutely. It'll be my pleasure. Okay, let's see. Do you have a recommendation for publishing a newsletter? Oh, an app. Well, interesting question, Denton. I don't have a recommendation. I do have a format recommendation though. First of all, I like free 99. Free 99 is the way to go. So MailChimp, I'm a big fan of MailChimp. But here's the thing. I think we overthink it. We overcomplicate it unnecessarily. A newsletter can be, let's talk about Lisa. So we're talking about the school year connecting. Is this college or high school, Lisa? Remind me.
So it would ideally be almost like that vocational trade school time, right? I'm done with high school. I'm going into the workforce. I don't want just an entry level role. I want something that I want to be a supervisor or manager or leader in those organizations. It would be that. Or
Okay.
somebody incumbent who's in that
Yes.
and looking for that promotability.
Okay, so that could be a photo of a young woman who's now been promoted to supervisor of X company as a result of whatever access she had to management training or to vocational training, et cetera. And her story, so a photo, a little bit of a story underneath. This is why we need your support. Boom, that is your newsletter. Or at the bottom, you say, we have an event coming up. We'd love for you to join us. By the way, if you have an event, you want to be talking about it for every newsletter for, 3 or 4 newsletters leading up to the event. We don't want to overcomplicate this. And not every newsletter, or I call it an e-blast, really. It's not even a newsletter. There are some newsletters that I get that are 2 or 3 pages long. And I so applaud the work that's being done by the organization, but it's too much. People don't read it. They don't have the span, the time, the bandwidth to read that. So you've lost them. Now they're just deleting because they know it's so long, they're just not even going to bother reading it. Whereas if you had one impactful photo, a message from our leader, a message from our CEO, a message from our board chair, or one impactful story, one metric, even an infographic, one infographic, lives changed, or, mouths fed, or beds provided to children, or whatever. I think if you can keep it short and concise and impactful. Now, one of the things I really love is the did you know? You can do a did you know e-blast. You can do lots of those actually. Where you're educating people. So an educational e-blast, but again, we're not talking about a newsletter with 17 different segments, and this is the new person on our team, and this is the spotlight of this, and this is, no, that's one email, the new person on the team, the spotlight on the blah, blah, blah. That's one email. That's one blast. Don't put 17 things in there. Here's why. Here's what happens. So not only do we have on the donor side, they're like, oh my Lordy, this is just way too much information. I can't digest all this, or, I forget it. It's one, I'll read it later, and then they never come back to it. But the other thing is, then we are so consumed with making this perfect newsletter that has all the segments, and it's been checked, and it's got all the photos and the colors and this, it takes us 6 months to get it out. That doesn't work either. Just pull the trigger. Pull the trigger. We're just getting started. We're small but mighty. We don't have a big fancy newsletter, but here's a photo of, little Janie at her acceptance speech last week, or her whatever vocational training graduation, last month, or whatever the case may be. So keep it really simple. She's accepted a position with Napa Auto Parts stores, the supervisor in the Delray office. We are so proud of this young lady who was on on a less favorable trajectory, shall we say, a couple of years ago, or whatever the case may be, or comes from such extreme poverty. So just keep it really simple. Don't let the perfection of it and the overthinking of it stand in the way of getting something out. If you have a membership service or a club, talk about your members, do a spotlight. We're fundraising for this. Did you know what we did? Or you can do a looking back. Did you know that 5 years ago we built this playground down in Miramar and wherever, in the park of whatever? Did you know that we did this? Did you know that? Those are great things to do too. We forget because we're so close to it. We forget all the incredible things that we've done as an organization, as a group. It's very powerful. So don't overthink the newsletter thing. All right. I hope that answered your question, Denton, about the newsletter. All right. So let me go back to, All right, so let's go into major gift strategy. Okay, now why can I not see? This is not my thing. So let's go back into our PowerPoint. Okay, so we talked about the database, immediate engagement. So make sure that you've figured out how many personalization levels you're going to have, potential matching gift, plan the personalized messaging. So that's all part of your donor database work. Okay, now we're going to talk about the major gift strategy. So this was also part of the end of year giving that we talked about, is major gifts. Major gifts are not only end of year, they're throughout the year. But I wanted to emphasize this right now because you do have a unique opportunity when people are feeling very giving, when they're feeling very thankful, which is what tends to happen as we get into November and towards Giving Tuesday. You have a lot of gratitude. And so this is a good opportunity for you to really spend some time on your major donors. So we talked already about focusing on donors with the highest potential to give large gifts, developing a personalized engagement plan, scheduling the one-on-one outreach, creating a stewardship follow-up process. Now what I'm going to do is I'm just going to take a moment and talk you through, we're just going to have a discussion on how to really have this effective major donor approach, but it's really about the relationship building. And, you know, if we think about a lot of organizations have very sophisticated mechanisms. They invest a lot of money in wealth screening tools, Wealth Engine, Donor Search, iWave. These are really great tools to gather information on donor capacity and wealth indicators. In fact, if you purchase Bloomerang, there's I think it's called Donor Search. There's an add-on that you can buy that as a donor gives, it'll tell you if they've given to other organizations. It'll say what their level of engagement is. Oh, they're on fire. You should go after them for more money, blah, blah. That's all great, but we can't all afford this Wealth Engine tools. It can be very helpful. Are they critical? No, they're not absolutely critical. You don't absolutely have to have that. You can use a little common sense. You can use some authenticity and relationship building. And you can also look through the people, even if it's in a spreadsheet. Who are the recent donors who have made gifts that are more than the $25, the $50, the $100? Who are the donors that are making a gift that could potentially move into this major giving area if you were to steward them, if you were to build a deeper relationship with them? Often the people that are giving a little more money are also sort of sending a subtle message that they trust you. They would like to build a little bit more of a relationship with you. They'd like to be more involved with the organization. They'd be proud to be involved with the organization. So you have to look a little bit in yourself at the giving patterns, at the giving history, at high average donation amounts, if there's a frequency of donations, if they're starting to give a little more often. Are they starting to show up and say, how can I help? What can I do? Is there any way that I could be helpful? Lisa, I saw that great program that you guys launched. Is there anything that I could do maybe to support you with that? Those are signs that people are starting to feel connected to your organization and that they could potentially be part of your major donor list.
Yeah.
So I would look at maybe creating a list of prospects. So think about your donors, think about maybe any intel that you've gotten from your board members, from anyone else. Maybe, for example, you've just gotten a gift from someone and you happen to notice when you went to, I'll use Delray Beach as an example. You went to Old School Square and you were looking at oh, look, they've got all their past donors on the wall there. Oh, that's interesting. Wow. And so Michelle Smith, who just gave us a gift, she gave them a gift of $50,000 for their special art classroom that they set up 2 years ago. Wow. Okay. So that's a valuable piece of information. First of all, we know that she has an interest in art. She's philanthropic. She's given $50,000. It was within the last 2 years. Like, you can gather so much information from that. So that's why I say, you know, a little bit of common sense. Yes, you have to do a little bit of research. Can it be uncomfortable? Yes, it can be very uncomfortable to research people. Yep, absolutely. If you have a development committee and names are bubbling up because people are giving, and the four of you in your development committee sit down and say, okay, well, this Michelle Smith gave a gift. This was interesting. And I think she gave a gift to the Old School Square at Delray Beach. And somebody says, well, yes, I heard that she also gave to the tennis center. It sounds like, it feels like gossip. It sounds uncomfortable. It feels uncomfortable. It feels like you're dredging up people's, but here's the thing. First of all, a development committee is a confidential environment, and you should be able to have these conversations with the people that are helping you raise a lot of money for your organizations. Or if it's your board, you should be able to have confidential conversations about your donors. Not every discussion about people's giving is for everyone to hear about within the organization. So there has to be a respect level. But you do also have a responsibility to your organization to look out for the people that are approaching you and that are supporting you. And it's your responsibility to honor them as donors, right? So you do have that responsibility. You also have a responsibility to your organization to steward your donors, raise as much money as you can, be informed about who you're interacting with and who you have a relationship with. That's important. You should know who these people are that are giving. You should also know, by the way, if there's anything negative in their history in terms of their giving relationship. Did they ask for something in exchange for a gift? Does one of your board members say, I think we need to be a little bit careful because this person gave a gift, but they then said that they were requiring a seat on the board of directors in order to provide that gift to the organization. These are very serious decisions that you need to be aware of, you need to be thinking of. In any case, we go back to high priority donors with the giving capacity. Someone needs to look after them. You have to assign someone to that person. That person can't just be floating out there and you hope that they get the e-blast and you hope that somebody invites them to the event. If this person has the potential to give to your organization in a significant way, they need to be nurtured and cared for, and there must be a relationship built with them. You must assign a relationship manager. Could be a solicitor. That used to be the formal language. People would say a solicitor because they're soliciting funds. I like a relationship manager, somebody to have a bond with that person. And it could be a volunteer, it could be a staff member, could be a board member, but one person really needs to be kind of overseeing. And it doesn't always have to be the same person. Maybe that person changes over time. Maybe that person tried to establish a relationship, but the donor bonded more significantly with another person at an event. That's fine. It can be the other person. What we don't want them is just by default to just kind of be out there. Here's the reason why. You have your big event. It's your November 18th event where you're thanking all your donors for all the support they've given over the years, but you're also inviting new people because they're all going to hear from the group of students that graduated this year from the program. And this person has been invited, but because they don't have a relationship manager, we don't know that they're coming. We don't know for sure that they're coming. We are not on the lookout for them when they arrive. They come in, they kind of wander around, they talk to a couple people, are like, okay, that was nice, and they go home. But they could have a very different experience. If Eduardo knows that they're coming, Eduardo says, I'm so excited that you're going to join me at this event. My wife and I are going to be there. Can't wait to introduce you to little Sophie, by the way, who graduated last week. And we're going to be highlighting her, and she's going to have her diploma with you and with her, and you're going to love her when you meet her. She's incredible. So I'll meet you at the entrance. Okay. We'll see you there at about 6:30. Perfect. Okay. And then they have this incredible evening with Eduardo, who introduces this potential donor to a few board members, makes them feel comfortable, introduces them to Sophie, tells them, I mean, totally different experience. So this is why it's so important. This person could show up at your organization one day and just say, I'd love to have a tour. But if they're not on anybody's radar, if we don't know who they are, if we don't have them in a spreadsheet, and the spreadsheet doesn't say, oh, Eduardo, call Eduardo immediately if this person reaches out, or if she comes for her tour or whatever, then again, they kind of fall through the cracks. So it's all about personalizing that relationship. The one-on-one outreach is critical, and it can be everything from a formal inviting them to an event to just researching anything publicly that you can find out about them, or learning about their family, their children, what they're interested in. Do they like to travel? Do they support the arts? I mean, just finding a little bit more about them will really make a difference when it comes time for you to sit down with them and have lunch, have coffee, give them a tour, because you also want to be able to talk to them as human beings, right? We're human to human, and we all have children, travel, culture. We have interests. We have things that we can talk about, that we can share about. So find ways that you can bond with them and connect with them, but on an authentic level. This is not contrived. This is not manipulated. This is all about building relationships. You'd be surprised how easy it can start to come once you loosen up a little bit about it. I know we tend to get a little anxious about major donors, to think, oh, what if they say no? What if they turn us down? What if, so what? So what if they do? Maybe they won't. But in the meantime, how about you just gain a promoter and a fan for the organization? You know, we can't get hung up on what the outcome could be. It's the same approach like when we were talking about grants the last time, and we talk about calling the funder, right? And saying, I mean, I just went through this experience myself where I was rejected for a grant. Yep, shock horror, I was. And I had the choice of just saying, well, I guess I can just forget about that, or let me just bite the bullet, reach out and see if I can schedule a phone call and find out why they turned us down. And it's not fun and it never feels good, but you know what? We have a great relationship, and I got a lovely response, and they just said, we've actually just shifted our funding focus. It really has nothing to do with you. We're going to be focusing on something else going forward. I'm like, oh, okay, well, I can't fault that. I mean, you know, so we just, it's the same with these, with donors, with major prospects. We have to get over this feeling like they have a power over us or over the organization. We are all human beings. If they've expressed an interest, if they've come into our circle in some way, let's do our very best to be good humans back, share what we can about the organization. Maybe it'll be a hit, maybe it won't, maybe it'll be a great match, maybe it won't, but we have to give it a try and give it our best effort. I do think, though, that if you're going to be able to, if you get into a situation where you can plan a coffee or a lunch, some kind of one-on-one situation, and a great way to do this, again, is to say, I'd love to tell you a little bit more about the work that we're doing. We have this really, really neat program that we're launching in January. Maybe you'd be interested in being part of it. I'd love to tell you about it and actually get some feedback. That's a good way, very neutral way that you can have a coffee or a lunch with someone. You're not asking them for money right away. You're just asking them for their interest or for their feedback or thoughts they may have. But come prepared. So always come prepared. And I don't mean come prepared with a slide deck necessarily or a slick brochure. It is nice to have something that you can leave behind, like a one-pager or something, but just come prepared with some key points, maybe some facts about the organization, a little bit about the history, you know, what the budget is, maybe how many lives have been impacted, what your goals are for 2025, and at least one or two really, really powerful stories, like really powerful stories, tear jerkers, goosebumps, that kind of story. Have one or two in your back pocket that you can pull out. And you just never know when you have the right moment to bring it up. And people will be so moved. You know, what moves you is what will move them. But it also gives you a chance when you've told your story, you can say, so tell me a story about an organization that, you know, especially like if they've just moved to town or if they've been very involved in other other projects. And so tell me a story about something that you were involved in that really, really made a difference, really made an impact on you. And then again, you've bonded as human beings, right? You've shared some neat storytelling, and it's amazing when that vulnerability is there, how people can connect, and people connect to people. That is what connects them to a cause. It's connecting them to people. So if you are on your second meeting, or if there's already been a conversation about a gift and you feel like it's appropriate, you can ask for a gift. But what I would say is, when you are ready for that time, make sure that the donor knows that's coming. Make sure they're not caught by surprise. This is not, now, you could sort of theoretically throw something out there, like say, well, we have a big goal for next year, and I'm really hoping that you're going to join us. You're going to be part of it. Great. That's one thing. That's safe. But if you are going to say, John, you and Mary have been so involved in this organization, you've expressed such an interest. What would really help us at this point is a gift of $20,000 to provide 5 scholarships for needy students in Palm Beach County. That was something that I was hoping that you could help us with as we get to the end of the year. Now, if you're going to ask something like that, they need to know the ask is coming. You cannot pop that question to someone who just thinks they're coming for coffee with you. So make sure that as you tee them up for this meeting, you say, and John, we're going to be talking about how you and Mary, you both expressed such an interest in getting involved. I'd like to talk a little more about how that monetary contribution could really come into play. So we're looking at, between now and the end of the year and trying to meet our goals for next year for these students that they desperately, desperately need to know that they can get into a decent college, or that they have a pathway to a great future, et cetera, et cetera. So just make sure that if you feel the time is right, you have prepared the donor so that they are not caught off guard, because it can be incredibly awkward. So the major donor and major prospecting role that you each play, and that your development committee plays, maybe your board of directors, I'm not sure, staff, what the setup is that each of you has, but there is a process. There's a process that needs to be documented. I think that when you start targeting donors more specifically like this, even if it's one, you need to have weekly meetings with key people. Maybe it's only 1 or 2 other board members, but you need there. First of all, it's for accountability. Secondly, because it's really hard sometimes to figure this stuff out on your own. You need other people to bounce ideas with you and help you and kind of shape the direction, the path. You may think you know everything about this one person, and they say, well, actually, no, they love Indian food. Why don't you think about taking them out for a curry one night? That'll really, or the whole board could take them out, or we could celebrate the wife's award for, whatever. And so I think the ideas, the brainstorming is always super helpful. Accountability, super helpful. Again, if you know that you have a meeting once a week where you have to report on where things stand with your donors and your prospects, you're going to get your work done. You just will. You'll be prepared for that meeting. You'll make the phone call. You'll send out the notes. You'll schedule the coffee. So I think that the accountability is really important. But then also making sure that there's a stewardship process. So what does that system look like? What did you as an organization decide that's going to look like? So maybe it is a personalized thank you email, handwritten note within 24 hours of a meeting with someone, or within 24 hours of meeting them at an event, or after their gift. But what do those systems look like? So making sure you've established who's doing it, when they're doing it by. If it's in your donor database, an automated email is fine. To me, it's not good enough, and it shouldn't be good enough for you either. I think people need to get something outside of an automated receipt, right? So they need to get either an email from you if you don't have a mailing address, or a mailed something, if you made a donation, it's more than $250, really, you know, the IRS requires that you send them something specifically that's an acknowledgement, it's a receipt. You can do it by email. I prefer to do it snail mail, but figure out what your systems are. Think about then, so that would be the immediate gratitude, but then think about what's your impact stories and updates. So if this is someone who's now giving more than, let's say maybe it's a recurring monthly donor, or they give more than $250 a year, what does that mean? What are you going to send them? Are you only going to send them the e-blast that everybody gets? Or are you going to figure out another way? Are you going to personalize maybe a letter from the desk of the executive director or from the board chair? Maybe you do it quarterly, has one little story in it, right? Something that happened, something significant. Or you could create a donor only email that goes out. So maybe this isn't for your prospects, but this is only for your donors, where there's an exclusive video from you, or there's something insightful about the impact of a donation that was made, or, you know, there's like a little bit of an extra. It's like I was saying with the recurring donors, where you think about a way that you make it a little bit more special with them. I would make sure that you're always planning future engagements. So with these major donors and major donor prospects, there should always be something you're looking toward in the future, some event, some major donor recognition program, or something that's happening at the organization, a VIP event, some sort of organizational update, a briefing, a Zoom call with a briefing on something is really great. But always have something that you're kind of keeping them engaged in and looking forward to. I would also, yes, Lisa.
You know, I have to share, you know, there's a huge light bulb that just went on for me. I'm almost embarrassed to say it. But, you know, I'm a human resources consultant. I've been in HR 30 plus years now. And the light bulb just went off regarding the correlation between what I've done in my, you know, career and this whole process of nonprofit, right? I wrote down employee relations equals donor relations. Right. So the same concepts, the same things that we want to do, the recognition, the rewards, the handwritten notes and letters, the things that I've been doing my entire career with my employees. Now, the same correlation is with my donors. Right. And it just was like, boom.
100%.
Such a simple concept, but
100%. I tell this to people about their friendships.
Yeah.
How do you nurture your friendships? You're always thinking of a little gift, a little something, a little. This is what we do for our donors as well. But yes, absolutely. That nurturing, that feeding, that giving value. You know,
the
they
same
give you what you
process, right?
Exactly.
Recruiting an employee equals recruiting a donor or recruiting a board member, right?
Exactly.
So thank you for being here and doing what you do for the chamber. I really appreciate it. I'm drinking all your Kool-Aid. I think you already know that. I'm stalking you in a major way.
I just get excited when I hear light bulb.
Yes. Me too. Trainer, right? Yeah. So I wanted to share that.
Well, thank you for sharing that, Lisa. I love it. By the way, when we think about our board, because I know I just mentioned, I mentioned the board and the, you know, like, where are you? Who are you doing this work with? The board should be giving every year. We know that, right? Your board members should be giving a gift to the organization every single year. Let me say that one more time. Every member of your board of directors should be making a gift every year. It is intended to be what is called a stretch gift. I would say that's idealistic, because that would imply that maybe this individual board member is serving only on one board. The reality is a lot of people are serving on many different boards. So I don't know that we can just be so general and say it has to be a stretch gift, but it should be a gift that is meaningful to the organization, meaningful to them, even as a donor. And here's the reason why. Board members do play a role in fundraising, even if it's a subtle role, even if they're the ones that are saying, I don't ask for the check and I can't ask for the check and I'm uncomfortable. Fine. But then help me thank my donors. if I get a donation, are you willing to make a phone call to thank a donor for their gift? By the way, there's nothing more, I love those phone calls. They are so much fun. When you can be the one to call a donor and thank them for their gift and say, I serve on the board of such and such organization. I wanted to thank you for your gift. It is so satisfying and so rewarding. And it's a great opportunity to say, and by the way, I'm curious, how did you even find out about us? How did you know about what we do? How did you know about our mission and the organization? It's a great starting point for a conversation and kind of finding a place to bond with that person. Talk about a relationship manager. That's a good conversation to have. But your board members, when they have given themselves, are in a very different, there's just a different dynamic to the relationship and to the energy when they're talking to a donor, because they can say, I have given too. Yes, I serve on the board and I give my time, but I've also given a monetary gift. In fact, I helped launch that scholarship fund, or in fact, I helped start this particular initiative. So I know that that's not something that we like to talk about very much, but board members should be making a gift. And yes, it all depends on each board member's financial situation. It should not be, there shouldn't be a threshold, I don't believe. But yes, there should be some contribution. They should be helping identify donors. And ideally, we do want them also to be part of the development committee if possible. I mean, even if what they're offering is input and feedback, to me, it's really important that the board members play a role in that. Even 1 or 2 board members maybe being involved, I think is important. So we're going to jump into the Giving Tuesday because I did promise you some nuggets on Giving Tuesday. So let's talk about what we're going to do before. By the way, did anyone have any questions on the major giving section?
There was one question in the chat about
yes.
if you had any recommendations for a wealth prospecting site or apps.
That's a tough one. I think what I would say is using Wealth Engine is, in fact, they're kind of, a lot of them are very similar. I haven't done research in the last couple of months, but about a year or so ago, I did a deep dive into the Wealth Engine and prospecting tools. And there were a few that were similar. Donor Search, I think, was one, and Wealth Engine was another. The best way to utilize those services was to have a list of names that you actually put into that system, and it gives you the feedback. So rather than look at it as, well, let me just go in there and hope it generates a list of names for me, which is never really going to work anyway, by the way, because these are just people out of the blue. You could have found them in the newspaper, or you could have found them, you know, through a zip code directory search or something. I think if you have a list of names, or if you've found a list of names on a donation board, or, you know, you've gone to a hospital and you see a list of names of people that have donated and you wanted to run those through a Wealth Engine, maybe that would be something to think about. Again, I would say if you wanted to spend a little bit of extra money and add the add-on, which I'll do my research after the call and tell you exactly which one, but it's either Donor Choose or Donor Search that interfaces with Bloomerang. I kind of like it. I've used it. I kind of like it. I thought it was interesting that it gave some additional feedback on what the donors had given to. Did I feel that it made a huge difference in moving the needle? You know, okay, now that I think about it, where I think this could really be valuable is in a capital campaign. When you're approaching people for $200,000 a piece to build a hospital wing, or to, you know, build a new school, there it really matters. I think that if you're looking at general prospecting, your best bet is going to be through your network. It's going to be through a board of directors. It's going to be through finding out what, and you can do all this, by the way, through chambers and rotaries and associations and so on, but find out what business they're involved in, what do they, look at their LinkedIn profile. You can find out a lot about people on their LinkedIn profile. What groups are they involved in? What associations are they involved in? What other boards have they served on? What big events and galas have they given to? So kind of doing some research like that might be, and that's where ChatGPT can be super helpful, because it can help gather a lot of that for you. So let me do a little more research on that after the call, and I'll let you know if I have any more thoughts on a wealth prospecting tool. Okay, so we want to build the pre-Giving Tuesday momentum. So this year it falls on December 3rd. So we want to think about some kind of special event, and I'm going to give you some ideas. So what I have seen be really effective, rather than just saying, oh, it's 24 hours of, everyone donate to my cause, but they're also getting bombarded with emails from all these other causes. What I suggest doing, because this is what I've seen work very, very, very well, is come up with a little event. Make it a 1-hour event at 5 o'clock or 6 o'clock, end of the workday on Giving Tuesday, and make it like a live stream of the executive director or the board chair with maybe a student in your program, or a person that received free dental care or free medical care, a beneficiary and their family, or an immigrant and their family who received special services through whatever the program was that you were part of, or a child and they read a book because they now know how to read as a result of this program. But come up with something special for about an hour that you can plan this event. You could call it a virtual open house. You could call it a virtual gathering or a celebration or a VIP night. Doesn't matter if everybody joins, they're still all VIPs. You can make a VIP night, but come up with something special for 1 hour on Giving Tuesday and make a really big deal about it. Not all day. You're not just opening up the floodgates. You're focusing on one event. This is our opportunity to appreciate you. Yes, it's Giving Tuesday, but we want you to come and learn and hear our message and what we're doing and our impactful story, and learn about this child, learn about this. So give it a focal point is what I'm saying, rather than just kind of whitewashing the day and just saying, oh, it's 24 hours and we're going to send you 50,000 emails and beg you for money. It is so much more impactful to have a focal point. Now, during that focal point, you could highlight specific donors. You could highlight your board members. You could do board member spotlight. You could have mission moment. You could have a couple of board members come on and talk about, because this could be Zoom, by the way, right? Not everybody has to be in one location. So you could do Zoom, and you can say, and now we're going to hear from Kirsten Stevens, our newest board member, and she's going to tell us why this program means so much to her, and why she decided to join our board of directors, or why she decided to give this year. And then I can talk a little bit about my connection to the organization. But anyway, so an hour event. It's a happy hour, a social hour, a donor appreciation, whatever you want to call it. Plan a 1-hour event. I'm telling you, it's not hard. It's cost effective on Zoom. It gives you something to highlight. It gives you something to invite people to. It gives you something to call people and invite them to. It's a great, great little thing to do. Now, you could get fancier. You could do a big campaign. You can do a giveaway. You could do an online auction. You can do an online gala. Oh my goodness, you could do so many things. But my recommendation, start small, do a virtual event, but do one thing on Giving Tuesday that is special, that you can promote, you can lead up to it, because otherwise, what are your emails saying about Giving Tuesday? Oh, give to us on Giving Tuesday. Just give to us, please give to us. Click on our donate button, give to us. It's just so generic. There's no personality. There's no oomph behind it, right? You haven't put any extra effort into anything. But if you can plan a special event, you've got a buzz, you've got countdowns, you've got teasers on social media, you've got email campaigns, you've got your donation systems all set to go, you've got your text to give. So if you do Giving Tuesday, you're not going to be able to do giving. I'm sure somebody else is going to take that word, but You could do something like, donor or VIP or something like that, and create a text to give campaign, because we said, remember, that's free through Give Butter. So why not doing that? You could do the challenge that we talked about. You could even make it a fundraising challenge. It's a fundraising challenge, and we're raising $5,000 in 1 hour. We're raising $5,000. Get your board members to each agree to give $50 each or $100 each before the event. And as they come on the Zoom, you can say, okay, and Kirsten Stevens going to talk about why she joined the board. Yep, I joined the board. And I just want to say, I just donated $100 to the campaign for tonight to raise $1,000, so give it some momentum that way, make it a challenge. And then on the day of execution, obviously we just talked about the donation platforms, make sure everything's working smoothly. But on the day of execution, we want to schedule some live updates. We want the emails to go out. Hey, we're starting in 1 hour, we're starting in 30 minutes, maybe do some giveaways. So if people are making donations live, real time, you can, and they're not anonymous, make sure you ask when they make the donation, is this gift anonymous? And you can say, oh, so John Smith just made a donation. Oh, Michelle Smith just made a donation. Oh, Dave Richards just made a gift, and we're giving him this cute little t-shirt or this whatever. You don't have to do that, but it's an option. And you definitely, mentioning people's names, the personalized thank you makes a big difference. Make sure that you have a plan for the thank yous, what you're going to be doing after the Giving Tuesday. Does anyone have questions on Giving Tuesday specifically? I know it's a big day that we hear a lot about, but what other thoughts do we have on that? Anything else? Okay. Does anyone feel, okay, let's do this, show of hands. Who feels like they could execute a Giving Tuesday campaign based on what I just told you? Something really simple. Could you do it this year, even if you've never done it before? Who thinks they could do it, maybe?
Absolutely.
Okay, great, good, awesome. Okay, it can be done, I'm telling you. And by the way, the simpler, the better. People don't like fancy. It doesn't need to be fancy. It can be homegrown. It can be homegrown. You can say, this is our first one. We're kind of winging it. So what? People love that. People love it. All right. Let's see. I think we're getting close to the end here. Let me just, I'm going to, the last thing I want to do is, let me go back to your end of year countdown and urgency, because I think this is really important. All right, and I just realized the time, so we have 3 minutes. Okay, so this is what's most important when we think about our end of year giving. We have to make sure that we have established in advance how we're going to reach out to people and what those dates are going to be. Typically, when you send an end of year appeal, and I know I hopped around a little bit, we just went from Giving Tuesday to now the end of year, which is kind of a pulling back a bit. But typically when we think of end of year, we send out an email or a letter in October, one in November, unless you're doing Giving Tuesday. Then it's kind of wrapped up in Giving Tuesday. You don't want to do an extra thing. And then another one in December. If you're sending an email to request a gift, you want to mention the tax deductibility. When you send an email, if you're sending one in October and you're going to send one again in December, do not send one to the people that already gave after you requested in October. So you want to be careful that you're monitoring who's giving and you're thanking them, and then you remove them from your list. Make sure you always mention that they can give stocks, because even if you don't have a stock account, doesn't matter. It's really easy to set it up and you can do it in a day. Call Kirsten. Seriously. You go to Wells Fargo, you say, hey, I've got someone who's going to give us a gift of stock. Can you help me set up an account? Yep, no problem. We'll help you. We're going to send you over to our brokers over there. They're going to set up a stock account for you. Easy peasy. Okay. So don't ever let that stop you. The other thing is when somebody says, oh, well, I'd like to make a gift from my donor advised fund. Wonderful. We would love to get your gift from your donor advised fund. Okay, those are wonderful gifts to receive because that is money that's already been allocated. They've already given it. They've already gotten the tax deduction. By the way, another thing to be mindful of is when you're sending the thank you letter to someone who gives you from a donor advised fund, they have already gotten that tax deductibility receipt. So we're not going to send them a second one. You're sending them a thank you, but they're not getting a tax deduction from the second gift from you the second time round. So they gave the money to Community Foundation, let's say. They got a receipt. That's what they're going to give to their accountant. Okay. When you get the gift from the Community Foundation with their name on it, it's coming from the Community Foundation to you. You send a thank you to the donor, but you don't send them a tax deductible receipt because they could then take that again to their CPA. Now they can claim twice the amount of the gift. So it's very important that you be very careful with that. It's not tax deductible twice. Make sure that you can set up ACH and Zelle so that there's no fee, okay, credit card fees, all of that. And then make sure that you're always using urgent calls to action. Last chance to give, final opportunity to make your gift. We're so close. We're just need, $20,000 more to get us over the finish line. So just be thinking of ways that you can really, really include some urgency. And make sure that you've got a stewardship plan. And you're going to get these slides. We talked a lot about this already in terms of the thank you notes and the emails and making the phone calls. And these are all really, really important details that need to be followed up on. And you just have to have that plan established ahead of time. Okay. So if you've mapped out some of these goals that we talked about, if you come up with a realistic scenario of what you feel you can accomplish, and maybe all it is, I'm going to send my emails out in October and December. I'm going to send letters out to 10 people that are my major prospect donors, and I'm going to do a 1-hour recognition event on Giving Tuesday. If you came away with those 4 things, you would be so ahead of the game, especially if you were thinking, oh my gosh, I don't even know what we could do for end of year. So seriously, think about it. Come to me with any questions. You will have this information. Today's Friday. It's end of day for me here on Friday. So let's say by Monday, I'll have everything in the folder for you, the slides. By the way, I have sample email letters for end of year. I have sample donor appeal letters for you for end of year. I have a sample calendar, end of year calendar to kind of map out all of the activities for you for the end of year. So I've got all of that for you. It'll be in a folder. The slides will be in a folder. And if you have any questions, please reach out to me. And also, if you decide to do any of these things and you have some success, or even if you don't, please let me know because I would love to hear how things go for you. I am happy to stay on for a few more minutes and answer more questions. And I apologize that it's it's not 6:02. It's 11:02. It's 11:02.
What time is it in Istanbul?
It's 6:02 p.m.
Wow. Okay.
But I'm happy to stay on if anyone has any questions. I know Angie probably wants to wrap up and we need to stop the recording.
No
But
worries.
thank
I
you
will do
all
that right
so
now.
much.
Thank you.